Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I've just sat down and done this kind of video where I'm talking to you guys. So this feels really good to be back, and I'll start uploading more and more videos as we go here. I've just been busy with real world flying. I'm trying to get my private pilot license. Um, Finished my written exam, finished all the hours requirement. I just need to uh, get my final check ride done, and then I'll be good to go. So that's some good news. Hopefully I can get my check ride done soon. It's going to be fun flying with friends, just having that freedom to rent an airplane whenever I want and fly around. So yeah, that's some news from my life. On this video I wanted to talk about my PC upgrades that I've done in the last few months, plus the settings that I'm currently using and the performance that I'm getting with this particular PC and settings. Right? Just so that you guys have a reference point or a sample point from here, because people are posting their performance numbers on different rigs. So with this CPU and GPU combination, you'll know what to expect if you're trying to upgrade or if you're trying to build a new PC. So that's the idea of this video. Once we go over where we are at and all that, I'll directly just jump into settings. So we are in the Phoenix A320 here at Boston, and I always choose Boston to do these performance evaluations because I really love the scenery, the way Fly Tampa has done it. It's incredible. Plus Boston has a lot of water around it, plus it has downtown in the background. There's a lot of photogrammetry going on, so it's a good mix of everything, plus the payware scenery from Fly Tampa. So it looks good, plus it's challenging enough for the sim, but not as much as, let's say, JFK would be, right? It's a good middle ground. Anyway, that's what we are doing today, and that's where we are at. So with that, let me jump right into settings. General options, graphic. So the display mode is set to full screen. Full screen resolution is 2K. I don't see a need of going to 4K. I don't have a 4K monitor, by the way. If I go to 4K, I'll have to probably upgrade to a 4090 or a 4090 Ti to get the exact same performance. I would think so. But yeah, I just don't feel the need to do it. I have a 32-inch screen. I sit pretty close to that screen, and 2K gives me enough pixel density to get a good visual experience. So I think I'm good at this resolution for a while. Anti-aliasing is set to TAA. I've tried the other settings, but it just blurs out the lines on the displays, so I don't like it. I just keep it at temporal anti-aliasing so that I'm getting crisp displays, because that really changes the way your sim looks. Render scaling is set to 100. Frame generation is set on. This setting will pretty much double your frame rate. So if you're getting 40 with your hardware, it'll seem like you're getting 80, right? So there's some AI math going on there with frame interpolation and whatnot. I don't understand what's going on or why this wasn't done way before it was done, right? So whatever is going on here, it basically doubles your frame rates, and it's pre-performance if you have a graphic card that can do this. Sharpening is off. This really just cancels out AA. If you really sharpen things up, it'll start looking jaggy, and I just don't like that, so I keep it off. VSync is off as well, don't need it. DirectX version is set to DX12. I cannot use frame generation with DX11, which is the main reason of keeping it to DX12. Apart from that, I haven't seen much difference. What I have seen is with DX12, sometimes you'll see your screen flashing momentarily. I don't know if you guys have seen that too, but this is something that I've observed. So maybe it's just a glitch right now because it's in beta, but that's something I've seen. Apart from that, I haven't seen any issues or differences between DX12 and 11. I get better performance on DX12 for sure, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Terrain level of detail is set to 200. I can probably push this to 300 and it'll still be fine for this system on Phoenix or PMDG. But right now it's set to 200 because I like that smooth experience. Now on this setting, we're going to go outside and see what kind of a difference you see in the visual quality of the terrain when you use 100 versus 200 versus 300 versus 400. So watch out for that. It'll be right after this settings review here. Off-screen terrain pre-caching is set to ultra. I've never ever toned this down to anything below ultra, because when I compare low versus ultra, I see that ultra gives me a lot less stuttering, and it has something to do with loading the terrain assets that are like out of your panning zone, and then when you actually pan to that zone, that thing is already loaded because it's pre-cached, and that's why it doesn't have to load it again, which saves it from stutters, I guess. I don't understand it fully, but I think that's what it is, and I haven't seen any performance hit because of this, so I always keep it at ultra even on my mid-range PC. So yeah, just a note there. I'm not going through all of these settings, but you can see all of these are at ultra. Object level of detail is at 100. I can probably push it to 200 and will still be fine. I haven't seen any performance difference with this, but I have also not seen any visual difference, so I just leave it at 100. Apart from that, everything is pretty much cranked up except water waves. I don't like the way water waves look like at high settings, so I just leave it at medium. Plus it takes a few frames too, so I just like leaving it at medium, that reason. Going down here, everything is good. Ultra. Bloom is set to on, because if I leave the bloom off, my sun looks like, well, the sun in the sim, not my sun. Sun in the sim looks like a white or yellow circle, and I don't think it's realistic. So I just turn it on for that reason. Plus it adds a little bit of this ambient light that I really like. So depth of field is set to ultra. Motion blur is off. Lens correction is off. Lens correction, I've seen that when you turn this on, you might see your click spots getting messed up. So if you're having that issue, make sure that your lens correction is set to off, because that could be causing the click spot issue. Lens flare is set to on because it just looks really good. Sometimes when you're facing the sun and taking a good shot, it looks really good when you have lens flare on. Glass cockpit refresh rate is set to medium. I can probably turn this to high. I just like to leave this to medium because I don't visually see any difference from medium to high, or at least perceivable difference. I haven't seen it myself, so I just leave it to whatever the best lowest setting is. So that is it for graphics. For traffic, I have left everything to low. I just don't like having a lot of traffic, so I've left it all to low. If you guys like having this, it does take away quite a bit of performance as you start cranking this up, but yeah, if you guys like it, you prefer it over other things, you can crank this up. That's my graphics settings and my traffic settings. I think this is all that affects performance, if I'm not wrong. Now let's go over the performance. So we'll start from outside view, where on the left top corner you'll see that I'm getting about 100 plus FPS in the Phoenix A320 at Boston. The engines are on, displays are all on, so this is the worst case scenario basically. And just panning around, very smooth and really good performance as well. Right, now going to the cockpit, we are getting about, I would say, 75 to 80 FPS, somewhere in between 75 to 80 FPS, right? So that's our in-cockpit performance. Very smooth again. Also note that this frames per second number that you're seeing is with DLSS. So without DLSS, you can pretty much half this number. So I'm actually getting around 40 FPS right now, and that's being doubled to 80 FPS. So just keep that in mind. Very smooth again. Yeah, that's the in-cockpit performance. Now I'll go over and crank up the terrain level of detail here to 400. And then let it settle down for a bit and show you what kind of in-cockpit performance you're getting with 400 LOD. Okay, I think that should be enough, and it has settled down. But you'll start to see some stuttering, right? The 99% FPS started to get lower. The overall average FPS has also started to get lower. You'll start to see some stuttering happening. It's still pretty smooth, I would say, but when I'm starting to pan around, you'll start to see some stutter, because 400 is brutal. Like I said, this setting can really bring any PC down to its knees. And although I'm getting like 50 plus FPS, there's a shit ton of stuttering going on here. So that is why I leave this on 200, which is a nice sweet spot between visuals and performance. Now let's go out and check what kind of a visual difference you'll get with different terrain level of detail settings, right? I'm gonna crank up the drone speed and try to gain some altitude here and change the time so that I can better see the terrain here. I think that should be enough. Alright, let's change the time to somewhere midday, I would say, that we can see exactly up to what point the terrain is getting, well, the autogen is getting loaded. So right now we have it set to 200, and you will see that I'm able to see buildings and trees up until somewhere around this point. Until this point we are seeing very dense population of building and trees, but then after that, like maybe for half an inch or so, you'll see there are some buildings but not a lot of them. So that's how 200 looks like, and it's not bad honestly, because in real world after this distance you would anyway have scattering going on, the visibility will kick in, so it looks very convincing at 200. Now let's push this down to 100 and I'll show you how much different that is. Right, when I push it to 100, you'll see that instead of our terrain loading up to this point, it now loads only up to this point, which I would say is still not bad. But when you're cruising at like 35,000 feet, 40,000 feet, and trying to look at the ground on a clear day, that's when you'll notice this the most, right? So this is what 100 will give you. It will not change performance a whole lot. It'll probably change performance in the cockpit, but not at this altitude. Anyway, 100 gives you something like this, which is convincing, okay, but not as good as 200. So I would say if you have a really good system, push it minimum to 200. Right now, let me really quickly go back to 200 and then show you the difference between 200 and 400. And you'll be surprised at how low that difference is. We'll let it load for a little bit just to make sure that we're getting the line right. Okay, there we go. So we are back to 200. The buildings are loading somewhere up to this point here, and maybe a few buildings here. Okay, so now that you have 200 in your recent memory, let's look at 400. And up way. There we go. So now you will see that not only the density around here has increased, but also instead of these buildings only being rendered, it is also rendering buildings up until roughly this point, right? I see some trees going on there, roughly until this point. So from 100 to 200, it went from somewhere here to somewhere here, right? But from 200 to 400, it barely changed, right? And that has to do with the angle that you're looking at this from as well, because there's more distance covered between this compared to this, right? Because you're kind of looking at it from a slant angle. But anyway, from visual standpoint, I think 200 is a really good sweet spot for the high-end systems, right? You don't need to push it to 400 unless you're throwing everything at it. You have a 4090, maybe, you know, actually I don't know, because graphic card doesn't matter here. It's mainly your CPU that is doing all this processing, right? You'll never be limited by the graphic card. You'll always be limited by your CPU on Microsoft Flight Sim. So yeah, even if you have the best CPU, I would say keep your terrain level of detail right now to 200 to get the best balanced experience. 400, it's just not worth it for me right now. It barely adds a little bit in the terrain level of detail while not adding too much. Well, taking away too much from the performance but not adding too much in the visual detail. 200 looks great, feels great, and that's what I'll be sticking with. But this is just an overview of how the 100 versus 200 versus 400 compares. So just summarizing everything, if you have a low and mid-end system, go for the 100 setting. If you have a little bit better PC compared to mid-range, like you're able to get 60 FPS, try to push it to 200. Maybe work with like 50 FPS or something. It still looks smooth. Going to 400, not the way to go right now, unless you're flying general aviation airplanes. Obviously, if I'm flying Comanche, or if I'm flying a PA-28 Aero, something like that, I will definitely push it to 400, right? Because it just looks amazing. You have a lot of frames in your back pocket to give away on general aviation, because you're getting more frames anyway. So yeah, that's the whole story about terrain level of detail. We are back at the airport here, and we are also done with the video. So thanks a lot again, you guys, for staying up until this point, for watching this video. Let me know what you think about this PC. Let me know what you think about the performance. Let me know if you are upgrading your PC or if you're building a new PC. Just share your experiences and we can have a nice chat about Microsoft Flight Simulator and also PC building and whatnot. If you're new to the channel, please join the Discord. We do some live streams there. I'm starting to give more and more people access to the voice channel so that you guys can jump in and talk to us whenever we are flying together. If you want to fly with me, just ping me on Discord and we can set up a session where we can do a nice little VATSIM flight. Apart from that, what else? Yeah, I think that is it. Thank you all for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.